I've recently released a revamped version of the first volume of my manga, but this video is not just an announcement for that, it's also a deep dive into my ambitions and endeavors. I'll start with why I made the channel. I made this channel with the goal of becoming big and then selling my manga. I'll go into the details later, but the primary reason I started uploading content as Yumesuke was so that I could one day convert my subscribers into fans of my manga. I made writing videos based on manga and anime to prove that I knew my way around writing, especially in regards to manga, so that people would be curious to see what a story created by me would be like. My PhD in writing was very useful for this process, but as I made videos, I quickly began to enjoy the act of sharing my writing knowledge and opinions. I began to have the desire to give to others what wasn't given to me. This takes me to my goals and values. I was never taught to write by any kind of teacher. I started off by simply copying what other stories did, but then I fell into the world of story analysis, and I take notes on everything I heard and try to implement them into my story. But there were two problems. The first was that there wasn't a video for everything writing related. For example, most videos I watched either analyzed characters or themes. There were rarely videos analyzing what made a plot good, and I didn't know I needed them until I started creating them. The second problem was that there were videos that were either unhelpful or detrimental. As you can see from my response videos, there are videos that I heavily disagree with and may have actually negatively affected my writing. Aside from that, there are false narratives that are widespread, like character arcs and backstories are necessary, or a protagonist needs to be proactive, or power escalation is bad, that I actually believed until I researched and wrote my own videos, like my Good Character series or my Power System series. If you couldn't tell, I value good writing above all else. When I make a video, I'm not just trying to promote or dunk on a story. I'm showing examples of what I consider to be good writing and bad writing. My goal is to provide aspiring or struggling writers, mostly anime fans, with the detailed ins and outs of what makes a good story. And for people who don't write, my goal is to deepen your knowledge or appreciation for stories and writing. I thought that there were certain videos that should exist, so I took it upon myself to do the research and become capable of making those videos myself. On a larger scale, if I was a huge and well-respected critic with over 1 million subs, my goal would be to improve the level of writing of the current and future generations, because I feel like the greatest stories out now could be consistently surpassed if more people understood the formulas behind good writing. And if you want to see a manga to follow the analysis you see on my channel, look no further than my manga. Now for the history of the manga side. I came out of the womb drawing. Luffy and Naruto wanted to be Power King and Hokage respectively from a young age. I wanted to be a great comic artist. I've been drawing comics for as long as I can remember, and I always had the goal of becoming some kind of artist, whether it was making comics, making an anime, or making a game. I even started teaching myself animation at one point, but eventually I realized that games and anime couldn't be made by one person and I would have to learn new skills. But with manga, I could be a one-man army, and I would only have to improve my current skills. From then on, it was all comics/manga. Earlier, I mentioned using YouTube to sell my manga. That means I wanted to become an independent mangaka. But how did I land on this strategy? I wanted to make a manga, but in the West, we don't really have any manga magazines. All we have is comics like DC or Marvel. But I wanted to create a manga of my own, not work with a group to create something that wasn't even mine, so they were out of the picture. I heard about contests that would allow Western audiences to submit one-shots to Japanese magazines, but that was too complicated for my tastes. But then, a slow wave of revelations hit me. The first was seeing Suikage advertise his manga after getting so big. I listened to an interview, and hearing how he always had a goal of writing something inspired me to follow in his footsteps, of first creating an audience and then selling the story. Next was learning One's story. This is the creator of the One Punch Man comic. Hearing how he casually put his comic online and grew a fan base to the point of getting a professional redraw and his own manga in a magazine was more inspiration for me. White Manga was another person I'd been following for a while. He made drawing videos on YouTube and also advertised his manga to his fans. He even had a magazine that he called the Western equivalent of Shonen Jump. But the main thing that shut down my interest of ever joining that was my investment in music and learning the business behind it. I was becoming heavily invested in rap and hip-hop, and this brought the concept of independent artists to my attention. Basically, signed artists have their label advertised for them, but that also comes with creative restrictions and the label taking bigger portions of their revenue. But with independent artists, it's difficult to advertise, but you also get most of the profit and all of the freedom. I watched videos of publishing manga independently, and it was basically the same thing, except replacing the label with a publisher or magazine. As someone who likes freedom and money, going independent was looking like the best option. But knowledge of how much Japanese mangaka make was the absolute nail in the coffin. I saw an article that I'll link in the description, but this is what I learned. In Shonen Jump, a manga named Uzimaru made 10k yen per page and 80 pages a month. This is 800k a month and 9.6 million a year. This is about 96k US dollars. Mangaka also make royalties from tankobon. In another manga by the same author, Say Hello to Blackjack, he made 8 to 10% of every copy sold. Tankobons are between 500 and 600 yen, which is about 5 to 6 US dollars. This means that he made at max 50 to 60 yen per volume, which is 50 to 60 cents here. In 2009, it was estimated that the average mangaka, which means not from Jump, made 2.8 million from royalties. That's about 28k US dollars. This means that the average mangaka sold about 56k volumes. A manga like Saiki K, which has a decently popular anime, was also determined to have sold less than 750k copies since it wasn't on the top 30 chart. Furthermore, for anime, according to Gintama's creator, the mangaka are only paid an upfront license fee for the characters and story. After that, none of the profits go to the mangaka. In short, most mangaka make their money from their payment per page contract and tankobon royalties. I didn't even cover personal expenses. This nonsense was completely baffling. These people put their blood, sweat, and tears into making such amazing art, but barely make anything out of it. I wasn't trying to do this, so independent publishing was my final decision. So after that, I started researching how I can publish independently and came across Amazon KDP. It was difficult to follow their specific guidelines at first, but once I got the hang of it, it seemed too good to be true. I was able to self-publish a manga online with minimal difficulty. So I have the product down, the hard part is selling it. Finally, this takes me to the revamp. I'm doing this so that I can improve my story and the art. I don't want to redraw everything because I think it's cool to see art evolution, but I also need to make sure that the first volume has art worthy of being bought and standing on its own. My first strategy was to ignore the level of art because it would get better as the story went along, and the story was what matters. But I never considered that good art got people's attention and kept them reading to get to the good story. So that's why I want to revamp the volumes. I'm also going to leave the 3-in-1 volume up for anyone who wants to go further in the story, because the revamped volumes for 2 and 3 might take a while. I want to take my time and improve as an artist and writer so that I can execute stronger ideas earlier on in my manga. I want to take my time with this and elevate the quality. The first 4 chapters of volume 1 will remain available on Webtoons. Finally, my overall goal on the art and manga side is to create a formula for independent mangaka or comic artists in general to successfully sell their product. Musicians have websites like Spotify and SoundCloud made for them and can also use others like YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. But comic artists don't really have any site that they can thrive on. Independent musicians can actually make money off of SoundCloud and a living off Spotify. The closest thing we have is Webtoons, and there are a lot of problems there. First, even getting seen and making it to the point of ad revenue is difficult. And then what they pay once you get there isn't worth the effort in my opinion. In both Japan and the West, comic artists that are published aren't paid enough. That's why I think the best option for an independent mangaka is to use KDP. There are several templates for becoming an independent musician. I want to be able to create the template for becoming a successful independent mangaka and hopefully inspire others to follow suit. But first, I need to be successful. That's where you come in. Your support would be greatly appreciated and could potentially revolutionize the world of manga in the West and the East. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and help me revolutionize the manga industry by buying my manga and spreading the word. All important links will be in the description.